What is Learn Outside? Learn Outside is a fascinating approach in the education field that allows students to expand their knowledge beyond the walls of the classroom. It is a metaphor for the idea that learning should be done not just within the walls of the classroom, but also outside of it. It encourages both literal and metaphorical educational attributes, such as outdoor activities, field trips, and hands-on experiences and project-based learning. This experiential approach encourages students to explore their environment and to use it to help them understand their world better. This approach helps student agency and the gaining of a deeper understanding that they can apply in a relevant real-world situation.
Welcome to Learn Outside. This week we are going to be learning about the precision machining pathway here at Career High School. And we are going to be meeting with our superhero guest, Mr. Chris Kuznarek, who we will have on here shortly to dive in a little deeper. But Learn Outside it's just a discussion about innovative practices of disrupting the status quo of education, and we are so thrilled that you could join us today. I am Dr. Candy Van Buskirk, the Assistant Superintendent here at the Career Academy Network of Public Schools, and my co-host is...
I'm Dr. Marilyn Nash. I am the K-5 Maker Manager at Success Academy, the primary building for our public network of schools.
Excellent. And we first are going to get started with our Learn Outside moment of the week. So Dr. Nash, if you will share your Learn Outside moment of the week.
Sure, I'm very excited to talk about this. It was something that happened with our fifth grade, some of our fifth grade students. They started this whole unit, and I say whole, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. They began with some research into rockets. What is a rocket? What's the purpose? How are they built? Then they actually interviewed a NASA engineer who works on different components for the NASA program. So they had an actual firsthand experience with someone who does that every day. So that was exciting for them. They continued the research then once they had that new knowledge as to what would the project look like and how could they build rockets. And in the end, they ended up doing what are called stomp rockets. And stomp rockets is where you build a force of air that shoots the rocket out. And they actually literally stomp it. That's why they're called stomp rockets. But to understand that you needed that force of air and all of those components to create that experience with the rocket. And again, then they took all that knowledge, yet again, back to the reflections in their journals. Because that's just a key component in all of this Learn Outside is the thinking process, what am I thinking now? How did it change? What was the impact of this experience? So it's a whole project that I was really excited about, stomping the rockets.
Right. No, and you're right on. Like the biggest key for experiential learning is step one is to reflect, right?
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. The Learn Outside moment of the week that I'm going to share is I was in a conversation with Mr. Wooding, who is our art teacher, and he is very much wanting his students to design some pieces that they are then going to work in partnership with our engineering and our precision classes to then bring what they design architecturally in the art class into precision machining and engineering to then have those cut out in the CNC plasma machine and put together, and then to put those art, like works of art, out in the property of Career Academy, as well as potential into art shows in different pieces. So I just really like that overlap of what we have going on with the pathways and really connecting all of our learning together.
Absolutely, and to see the teachers getting excited and starting to really think about what's my Learn Outside project. That's amazing, that's exciting.
Yeah, and then to potentially think down the road, who's an industry partner that we can partner with in order to, from our art class to engineering to precision machining, where we have that authentic audience.
Very exciting.
Yeah, so that was our Learn Outside moment of the week.
Yeah, definitely.
So that now takes us to our superhero commercial of the week. We will be right back
after the commercial.
And when we come back, we will have with us Mr. Chris Kuznarek.
That's exciting.
Yes, isn't it? Our precision machining teacher. Thank you.
Thank you.
This message of Learn Outside has been brought to you by the Boys and Girls Club of St. Joe County.
Catch me outside! Catch me outside!
This message of Learn Outside has been brought to you by the Boys and Girls Club of St. Joe County.
Welcome to Learn Outside. We now have with us Mr. Chris Kuznarek, our precision machining teacher. We're very excited to have him share with us about the precision machining pathway. Before we get started to talking about the pathway, Chris, if you could just share a little bit about yourself and how you got to this point in your career where you are leading the precision machining here at Career Academy Network of Public Schools.
Okay, well, in a nutshell, I spent the last 25 years in industry running machines. Started at the bottom and just worked my way up over time. Made a realization very early in my career that the more you know, the more valuable you are. I mean, that kind of goes with pretty much anything that you do in life. But I strived for 25 years to learn everything I could, and I got to this point where I felt like I couldn't go any further with machining in industry. And I wanted something different. I wanted to change. My wife is a teacher. And I'd always considered it. I've always had kind of a love for working with kids, and decided to give it a shot. And I landed here and just finished my first year teaching, as you know. And I'm just absolutely loving seeing the kids learn about something that I've been passionate about for 25 plus years, and having the ability to kind of teach that trade to a whole new generation.
Goodness, Chris, I thought you had been teaching for 10 or 15 years. That's amazing.
No, first year teaching.
Wow, impressive. Well, it shows that you bring all that knowledge with you.
Yep. I try.
It works.
So tell us, because, if I was just coming in off the street, or I'm, teaching a math class or a science class, I may not know what precision machining is. So this is something you've spent a lifetime doing, and you're incredibly talented at what you do. But if you could share with us, what specifically is precision machining?
Well, that's kind of one of the first things that we actually talk about for the PM1 class is what is precision. You have precision and you have accuracy, and they're two totally different things. If I'm shooting arrows and I hit a bullseye perfect, that's accurate. But if I may be way off the bullseye, but if I can hit that same spot 10 times over and over and over, exactly the same spot, that's precision. Okay?
Yep.
Precision machining, you have to balance both. You have to be accurate and you have to be precise. So in another way to look at it is, I think most people around Career Academy schools, we have 3D printers everywhere. Okay? Precision machining is the opposite of 3D printing. Instead of building it up from nothing, we're taking and removing to create material. So it's subtractive machining versus additive machining.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so we start with a chunk of metal and we'll cut away everything that we don't want to have, versus adding what we do want with like a 3D printing style. So that is what machining is in general.
Very good. Can you?
That's helpful.
Yeah, that's very helpful. That enlightens me, and I appreciate the layman's terms of making it understandable. Can you give me an example of what might be, if I sat in your precision machining class, what's something that we might do?
Well, we start the first year with a lot of basics. I don't think I have one around me, but one of the first projects we do is we make these origami squares.
Okay.
Okay, and it's called a Shinobi square, and they use
A Shinobi square?
yes,
Okay.
or shape.
Okay.
And they use 8 different folded pieces of paper that are identical that get made into the square. And the kind of the thinking behind that whole process is showing them how precision affects an assembly of something. So unless they make all 8 of their individual pieces exactly perfect, their square, their cube will not be exactly perfect. So the more precise their individual components are, the more precise that overall assembly becomes that was built from those components. And it's a really good activity to show them that, you might have 7 that are perfect, and you have that 8th one that isn't just quite right, and the square just falls apart. It doesn't work the way it's supposed to. So that's something we do on the first year. We get into machining, we get onto the manual machines in the first year. We get into measurement and print reading, how to use some of the tools. We do some manual work, some layout work, which is kind of scribing lines. We mark it up with some dye or paint, and we'll mark out where the machining should take place, which is a bit of an antiquated technology that they don't really, or technique that they don't really use so much anymore. Right. But it's a good skill to have.
Sure,
absolutely.
Chris, if I can jump in real quick, as you were speaking about these exciting pieces for precision machining, I'm, as the K-5 maker manager at Success, in my mind, because that's one of the pathways that we have to as well to follow and inform the students about. And you said you said a word that just popped in my head that I use all the time, and that's the skill of measurement.
Yes.
What other things besides measurement would you recommend? I have some things in my mind, but I want to hear from you that would be good for me to help the K-5 students focus on preparation for
some of the basics of what they might see on a blueprint.
Okay. Okay.
There are some very, very technical symbols and terms on there that are very complex and complicated that even adults struggle with at times. But there's some very basic stuff on there.
Okay.
So some of those things, knowing the difference between a micrometer and a caliper and what and when and how to use them, those are big. One of the things we're seeing, and it goes to the basics, is tape measures and rulers.
Yes, those will be out in the makerspace.
Yep, I spent 2 weeks, I think, on tape measures and rulers, just some of the basics of measuring. So,
well, that's very helpful. I'm glad to hear what you've shared, because it's like, oh, I have tape measures out. I have like 100 of those that the kids are using. We talk about tools all the time, and they've already begun, again, at K-5 level, but using blueprints to design different projects they're working on. So it helps me with that. I just wanted to hear I was on the right track with our students, so that's exciting.
You know, and to hear you talk about tape measures and rulers, and I'm glad to hear that we're doing that at K-5. I have a very good friend that's a contractor, and you know, he will bring in, you know, the young kiddos to work when they're 18, 19, 20 years old, and he is just flabbergasted at you know, young men and women that are unable to read at an accurate level of a tape measure and a ruler, right?
Just accurate.
Yeah.
Did we say precision?
Yeah, just accurate, right?
Exactly.
Well, and then it takes me back to when you were talking about the origami squares with the precision. And I think back, I'm sure we all did this when we were in like kindergarten, first, second grade, where our teacher would give us you know, this cutout, and you would have to cut the squares and paste them by number.
Right.
And, you know, getting frustrated because if it wasn't precise, your picture didn't look so great at the end, right, when you turned it in. But it just made me think, because, you know, as you work with K-5 and the precision and what that might look like.
Yeah, that's a good example.
I mean, I hope we're still not doing cut and paste.
Right.
You know, that was 40 years ago.
Although I find it, along with tape measures, again, as I was growing up, I had a little art box.
Right.
And I made things all the time.
Yes.
Even cutting and pasting is sometimes like, they don't do that.
Right.
So any of those, I think
and
those
those
are
skills,
with the tools
those
and
fine
things.
motor
So,
skills.
Yeah, if we're doing cut and paste, it's purposeful.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Well, you know, as we're looking at the students that you have coming in through precision machining, what are you seeing characteristics of students that really excel and really enjoy precision machining?
The ones that excel, you can tell they have kind of a love or passion, or just enjoy the hands-on type stuff, working with their hands. You see it in the PM1, Precision Machining 1, the first year class. They're a little slow in letting it come out, I think, because they're bigger classes. They don't want to, you know, they don't want to be kind of called out for being, you know, exceptional or excelling in a certain area. But you see it, you can tell pretty quickly which kids are better or enjoying that hands-on type of thing. Some of them, they don't want to get their hands dirty. It's not going to be for them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But there's some that, you know, you can see that their eyes light up and get a little wide when they see something that I show them that's been made on a machine, whether it's manual or CNC, and you can just tell those kids are they're gonna do well.
Well, and as we're looking at that, and we know we've talked about authentic audience and relevant real world experiences. Talk to us about industry partners or partnerships that we may have, or are we developing partnerships? I know we talked a little bit about that before we started recording the episode.
We're still actively kind of developing some relationships there. Obviously, we're a year and a half removed from COVID at this point, but none of that happened during that time. They weren't allowed to travel there. Nobody wanted them there. People had closed doors at that point. So we've got a couple. United Tool and Engineering in Mishawaka, I believe, is going to be taking a couple of our senior precision machining students in the fall.
As an internship?
Yes, for an internship.
Perfect.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
And then like I said, we're still actively looking for others. I believe we're talking with Honeywell on some things and some other local machine shops. So.
Perfect. Now, are there certifications that students are earning while they're going through precision machining?
Yep, there are. It's called the NIMS certifications. It's National Institute for Metalworking Skills.
Okay.
We had, I believe, right at 20 students get certified this year.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that great?
So I believe there was 0 the last 2 or 3 years.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, my goodness.
So-
Is this seniors that earn this?
No,
or
all levels.
All levels. Oh,
I actually don't have any seniors right now. We currently only have PM1 and PM2 classes.
Okay.
So that will grow the program as we get more freshmen into PM1, and those PM1 and PM2s move up into the next phase of machining. So
That's amazing. You go from 0 to 20
Yeah.
in just that 1 year span. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And now is NIMS, is that the only certification, or are there multiple levels within NIMS?
that is the only Indiana Department of Education recognized certification.
Okay.
There are several other ones. We're going to be working on individual Haas certifications. That's Haas is the CNC side of things, and we've invested heavily into bringing CNC and some modern technology in, and
Okay,
plan
real
on
quick.
giving out.
If I am in the audience and I am listening, what does CNC mean?
Computerized numeric control. It's basically we go from the manual machines, which you do everything with your hands,
Right.
to a computerized version where you tell it what to do and it does it for you automatically.
Okay.
And so, and when you tell it, is that being put in through CAD?
It generates out of CAM.
Okay.
So there's 2 facets. There's CAD, CAM,
Yep.
computer-aided design, and then computer-aided machining.
Okay.
And that's where or manufacturing, depending on how you want to look at it. So the code can be inputted manually if it's fairly simple and not too complex. If it's quite complex, you need to use a computer to generate the machining code to run that part.
So then we're getting a little, I might be tangenting for a minute, but
No,
it's
that's
getting
better.
exciting.
Yeah, this is good.
We have our water jet cutter.
Yes.
And then and that's a CNC water jet cutter.
Yes.
And then we
Okay.
have a CNC plasma cutter.
Yes.
So with those 2 pieces of equipment, we're putting that in with CAM?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, CAD/CAM. So
Okay.
the software we use, we could take with those 2. They're pretty basic 2D, which means they only move in 2 axes.
Okay.
So we can put a picture in, and the software can look at that picture and say, "Is this what you want to cut?" And we say yes or no. That's the CAD side design, or we can design the shapes ourselves
Okay.
from scratch. And that's again the design side, and then we go into the CAM side, which is the generating the machining code to actually tell the machine where to go and where to cut.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yep.
And we're starting this in middle school, or is this starting in high school?
We're starting it would be PM2 is where the CAM side starts.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Wonderful. That's so exciting. We were just,
Yeah.
earlier prior podcast, we showed the garden stakes
Yep.
that our middle school students had
And
made.
Mr. Bernhardt does, when he brings his middle school in, they're not going, I wouldn't say they're going into any type of sort of formal lesson,
Okay.
but they're definitely getting some experience on the CAD CAM and getting some time on there. I've spent a couple moments with some of the middle schoolers, just showing them some of the basics, functions, and how to get from A to B to C. So
Yeah. Well, and something that we had shared earlier was that if if the students can do it, then we need to let them do
Yeah.
it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
We don't need to do it for them.
Yep.
So, and that's what it sounds like we're doing in precision machining.
Yep.
So, very exciting.
Yep.
Well, it is that time. We need to go to a superhero commercial break. We will be right back, and we'll be back again with Mr. Chris Kuznarek. Thank you.
Summer school band, summer school band, summer school band, Career Academy summer school band.
Welcome to Summer Band, where we play music better by playing Foursquare.
This portion of Learn Outside has been brought to you by Career Academy summer school band, summer school band.
Welcome back to Learn Outside. We are here with Mr. Chris Kuznarek, who is our precision machining teacher, and we are on to our final question. And so, Mr. Kuznarek, can you share with us what has been your biggest aha moment as the precision machining teacher here?
Yeah, not necessarily so much an aha moment, more than a realization. As the teacher and teaching something that I've been passionate about for most of my adult life, if not all of it, I came in wanting or expecting these kids to just love machining.
Right,
okay?
right.
And I made the realization fairly early on that, Precision Machining 1, a lot of the kids are here and they have to be here, okay? Precision Machining 2, they choose to come back and be here, okay? So they may not necessarily, they may start with 2 or 3 pathways and they might drop 1 or 2 into their sophomore year and junior year. So for me, it was finding what does it take for me to take that student who is kind of on the fence, they're here because they have to be. How do I make them want to be here? How do I make them want to come back? And the realization was, every student is different. Their learning styles, their learning techniques are different. Some of them are great with the book side. Some of them are great with the machining side, and trying to bring all that together and get them excited. There's successes and there's failures. Not everybody is going to be a machinist, and I know that.
Right.
But I do see. I had a student this year where he was struggling, I sat down with him and we talked and we went over a couple things. We went over a couple different techniques, and I saw him one day just get it and have the biggest grin and smile on his face. And that for me, like I said, not so much an aha moment, but something that I feel making that realization of how to get through to that particular student and make them kind of develop a want to be here rather than a need to be here. So.
And to see that love light bulb go on, that's priceless.
Yeah.
That is energizing
Yes,
as an educator.
very much.
Yeah, and we are just developing what it is, who we are, learning about different careers. And so as you talk about the students in the PM1, that they're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to see that you're diving into each individual student, to see how it is that they're wired, to see where it is that they need to move forward based on who they are individually. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank you for being here with us today. This has been a
Thank
great
you.
conversation.
Yes.
We
Thank
believe a lot of people are learning about the precision machining pathway and the great things that are taking place here at Career Academy High School.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, moving on, next week we are very excited. Our superhero guest will be Mr. Jeremy Lugville. He is our superintendent here at the Career Academy Network of Public Schools, and he will be sharing with us his vision and his passion about leading a district with Learn Outside experiential learning.
Yep.
So, thank you again for being with us,
Yeah, thank
Happy
you
to be
very
here.
much. Thank
and
you.
have a joyous Learn Outside week.
See you next week.
See you next week.